Friday evening at the Golden Rose restaurant buzzed with the sophisticated energy of fine dining. Crystal chandeliers cast warm amber light across marble floors. The soft murmur of conversation mixed with the gentle clink of wine glasses and silverware. In the corner of the main dining room sat an old baby grand piano. The instrument was polished to perfection, but had remained silent for months. Most patrons barely noticed it anymore. It had become just another piece of elegant furniture. Emily Harris moved gracefully between tables, carrying her tray with practiced ease. At 25, she had the quiet efficiency that regular customers had come to appreciate. Her brown hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail. Her white shirt and black apron were spotless despite the busy evening rush. Emily's gentle demeanor and attentive service had earned her a loyal following among the restaurant's clientele. She remembered drink preferences. She knew which customers preferred corner tables. She handled difficult situations with patience and professionalism. But tonight would be different. At table 12, in the restaurant's VIP section, Blake Mason was holding court with 3 business associates. At 58, Blake was worth over $200 million. His real estate empire had made him one of the city's most influential power brokers. He was also known for his arrogance and his habit of treating service staff as entertainment. "Another bottle of the 98 Bordeaux," Blake called out as Emily approached their table. His voice carried the authority of someone accustomed to immediate compliance. "Of course, Mr. Mason," Emily replied politely. "I'll have that right out for you." As Emily turned to leave, Blake's voice stopped her. His tone had shifted to something more challenging, more theatrical. "Wait a minute," he said, loud enough for nearby tables to hear. "I've got a question for you." Emily turned back. "Yes, sir?" Blake gestured toward the silent piano with a sweep of his arm. His business associates chuckled, sensing entertainment approaching. "See that piano over there? It's just sitting there, collecting dust." Blake's smile had a cruel edge. "How about you give us a little performance? Or are you only good at carrying plates?" The challenge hung in the air like smoke. Conversations at nearby tables began to quiet. Other diners turned to watch this unexpected drama unfold. Emily felt her cheeks flush. The attention of dozens of wealthy patrons now focused on her. She could feel their curious stares, their whispered comments. "I don't think that would be appropriate, sir," Emily said quietly. "I'm working." "Come on," Blake pressed, his voice growing louder. "It's just sitting there, doing nothing, like most pretty things in fancy restaurants." His associates laughed at what they perceived as clever wit. "Play us something," Blake continued, "unless you're afraid you'll embarrass yourself." The restaurant manager started to approach, clearly uncomfortable with the situation, but something in Emily's expression made him pause. Emily looked at the piano, then back at Blake's smirking face, then at the sea of expectant faces surrounding them. For a moment, nobody moved. The entire restaurant seemed suspended in anticipation. "All right," Emily said finally. Her voice was steady despite the tremor in her hands. "I'll play something." She untied her apron and folded it carefully. The simple gesture somehow transformed her from service staff into something else entirely. She walked to the piano with measured steps. Her posture straightened with each stride. Emily sat on the piano bench and adjusted its height slightly. She placed her hands on the keys but didn't press them immediately. She closed her eyes. She took a deep breath. The restaurant had fallen completely silent now. Even the kitchen noise seemed muted. Blake leaned back in his chair with satisfaction. He was clearly enjoying what he assumed would be an amusing amateur performance. Emily opened her eyes. She looked once more around the room. Her gaze lingered briefly on Blake's table before returning to the keys. Then her fingers began to move. The first notes emerged soft and tentative, a simple melody that seemed to test the piano's voice. But within moments, something magical began to happen. Emily's fingers found their rhythm. The tentative melody grew confident. Rich harmonies bloomed beneath her touch. The music began to soar. Blake's smug expression started to fade. His associates stopped their whispered commentary. Other diners set down their forks and turned completely toward the piano. Emily was no longer just playing music. She was speaking a language that transcended words, a language of passion and loss, of dreams deferred but not forgotten. The crowd had indeed frozen, but not from shock or embarrassment. They had frozen from the sudden recognition that they were witnessing something extraordinary. Where are you watching this video right now? At home, at work, or while relaxing? Let me know in the comments below. I love hearing from each and every one of you. 3 years earlier, Emily Harris had been living a completely different life. She was a junior at the prestigious Berklee Music Conservatory. Her focus was classical piano performance. Her professors called her exceptionally gifted. Her future seemed bright and clearly defined. Emily had grown up in a middle-class family that valued education and the arts. Her father, Robert, owned a small but successful accounting firm. Her mother, Linda, taught elementary school music. Their suburban home was filled with instruments and sheet music. Emily had shown musical talent early. By age 5, she was picking out melodies on their old upright piano. By 10, she was performing in regional competitions. By 15, she had earned a full scholarship to Berklee's prestigious preparatory program. The conservatory years were demanding but fulfilling. Emily studied with master teachers. She performed with symphony orchestras. She won awards and competitions. Her senior recital was scheduled for the following spring. Graduate school acceptances were already arriving. But life has a way of rewriting even the most carefully planned scores. The financial crisis began slowly. Robert's accounting firm started losing clients to larger corporate firms. The small businesses that had been his bread and butter began closing. Within 6 months, his client list had shrunk by 60%. Linda's teaching position was eliminated due to district budget cuts. Her music program was deemed non-essential. 20 years of building relationships with students and families ended with a pink slip in a cardboard box. Emily tried to continue her studies while her parents' situation deteriorated. She took part-time work at the conservatory. She applied for additional scholarships. She reduced her course load to save money. But the financial pressure became overwhelming. Her parents were too proud to declare bankruptcy. They were determined to pay their debts and maintain their commitments. That meant sacrificing everything else, including Emily's education. "We'll figure something out," her father had promised during one of their difficult family meetings. "This is just temporary. You can finish school next year." But Emily understood the mathematics of their situation better than her parents wanted to admit. The conservatory tuition was $28,000 per year. Her parents' combined income had dropped to less than that amount. There was no next year scenario that made financial sense. Emily made the decision herself. She withdrew from Berklee 3 months before graduation. She moved back home and found work immediately. Her musical training meant nothing to most employers. Her degree was incomplete. Her only marketable skill was her ability to work hard and learn quickly. The job at the Golden Rose had been a godsend. The restaurant was upscale enough to provide decent tips. The management was professional. The schedule allowed her to help her parents restructure their finances and search for new opportunities. Emily also began teaching piano lessons to neighborhood children. She charged modest rates that local families could afford. The work was satisfying, but financially limited. Most of her students' parents were dealing with their own economic challenges. The old upright piano in Emily's childhood home became her conservatory now. She practiced every morning before work. She maintained her technical skills through sheer determination. She studied advanced pieces using library books and online resources. Her former classmates at Berklee moved on to graduate schools and professional opportunities. They performed with orchestras and chamber groups. They won fellowships and residencies. Their social media posts showed concert halls and rehearsal studios that Emily could only remember. Emily never complained about her circumstances. She had made peace with her situation. But the loss was profound. Music had been her language since childhood. The piano had been her voice. Now both felt like memories from someone else's life. Her parents struggled with guilt about Emily's sacrifice. They offered repeatedly to find ways for her to return to school. But Emily understood that her family's financial recovery was more important than her individual dreams. She had made her choice with open eyes. "Maybe when things settle down," she would tell them, "music isn't going anywhere. It will wait for me." But privately, Emily wondered if that was true. Professional music careers required precise timing. They demanded continuous development and networking. Every year away from the conservatory made returning more difficult. The Golden Rose became Emily's stage now. She found satisfaction in providing excellent service. She took pride in her professionalism. She built relationships with regular customers who appreciated her attention to their preferences. But sometimes, when the restaurant was quiet and she was cleaning tables near the unused piano, Emily would feel a pull so strong it was almost physical. Her fingers would itch to touch the keys. Her mind would hear melodies that had no outlet. She never approached the instrument. It wasn't her place. She was staff, not entertainment. The piano belonged to a world she was no longer part of, until Blake Mason's challenge changed everything. The irony wasn't lost on Emily. A man who clearly had no appreciation for music was about to discover what he had inadvertently awakened. The skills that had earned her a place at one of the country's most competitive conservatories hadn't disappeared. They had simply been waiting for the right moment to emerge. That moment had finally arrived. What Emily didn't know was that among the diners that evening sat Marcus Chen. He was one of the city's most respected classical musicians. Marcus was the principal pianist for the Metropolitan Symphony Orchestra. He was also a composer whose works were performed internationally. Marcus had come to the Golden Rose for a quiet dinner before a recording session. He chose the restaurant specifically because it was known for its discretion. He could eat without being recognized or approached by music students and aspiring performers. When Blake Mason's challenge rang out across the dining room, Marcus had cringed. He had witnessed too many uncomfortable moments where wealthy patrons treated service staff as their personal entertainment. He expected to witness another embarrassing display of privilege and poor judgment. But as Emily's fingers began to move across the keys, Marcus felt his dinner fork freeze halfway to his mouth. Emily was playing Chopin's Ballad No. 1 in G minor. It was one of the most technically demanding pieces in the classical repertoire. It required not just mechanical skill, but deep musical understanding. The piece told a story of love, loss, and ultimately transcendence. Emily played it flawlessly. More than flawlessly. She played it with the kind of emotional depth that Marcus rarely heard from even professional performers. Her interpretation was sophisticated, nuanced, and completely personal. She wasn't just executing notes on a page. She was sharing her soul. Marcus quietly pulled out his phone and began recording. This wasn't for social media or publicity. This was for preservation. He was witnessing something extraordinary, and he wanted to capture it. The restaurant had become a concert hall. Conversations had stopped entirely. Servers stood motionless with trays in their hands. Even the kitchen staff had emerged to listen through the service window. Blake Mason's smug expression had transformed into something approaching awe. His business associates sat in stunned silence. The challenge they had expected to be amusing had become profound. Emily finished the ballade and transitioned seamlessly into a piece Marcus didn't immediately recognize. It was clearly her own composition. The melody was hauntingly beautiful, built on classical structures but expressing something entirely contemporary, something personal. This was the music of someone who had experienced real loss, real sacrifice. The notes carried weight that could only come from lived experience. When Emily finally lifted her hands from the keys, the silence stretched for nearly 10 seconds. Then the applause began. It started with one person and quickly spread throughout the restaurant. Diners stood at their tables. Kitchen staff applauded from the service window. Even Blake Mason was clapping, though his expression remained stunned. Emily stood from the piano bench and gave a simple bow. Her cheeks were flushed, but her composure was perfect. She had just delivered a performance that would have been impressive in Carnegie Hall. She had done it while wearing a restaurant uniform. "That was incredible," someone called out. "Where did you study?" Emily smiled politely but didn't answer. She picked up her apron and tied it back around her waist. The transformation from artist back to server was swift and complete. "I should get back to work," she said simply. "Thank you for listening." Marcus approached her as she prepared to return to her tables. "Excuse me," he said quietly. "I'm Marcus Chen. I'm a pianist with the Metropolitan Symphony." Emily's eyes widened slightly. She recognized the name. "Mr. Chen, it's an honor to meet you." "The honor is mine," Marcus replied. "That performance was extraordinary. I recorded part of it, with your permission." Emily nodded, still processing that Marcus Chen had heard her play. "Would you mind if I shared this?" Marcus asked. "I think people should hear what I just heard." Emily hesitated. "I'm not really looking for attention. This was just a moment." Sometimes moments are exactly what the world needs, Marcus said gently, but the decision is entirely yours. That night after the restaurant closed, Emily's manager approached her. Emily, I've been here for 15 years. I've never seen anything like what happened tonight. I hope I didn't cause any problems, Emily said. I know I should have asked permission first. Problems? Emily, half our diners asked if you perform regularly. They want to make reservations specifically to hear you play. Emily laughed softly. I think tonight was a one-time thing. But Marcus Chen had other ideas. The next morning he posted the video on his social media accounts. He wrote a simple caption. Sometimes you discover extraordinary talent in the most unexpected places. This young woman's performance last night reminded me why I fell in love with music in the first place. The video spread rapidly through the classical music community. Musicians shared it with their colleagues. Music teachers sent it to their students. Within 48 hours, it had been viewed over 1 million times. Comments poured in from around the world. Professional musicians praised Emily's technique and interpretation. Music students expressed amazement at her skill. Regular listeners simply said the performance had moved them to tears. The Golden Rose received hundreds of calls asking about the pianist waitress. Local news stations requested interviews. Music bloggers wanted to write feature stories. Emily watched this unfold with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. She had spent 3 years learning to be invisible. Suddenly, everyone wanted to see her, but she also felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Hope. For the first time since leaving Berkeley, her future seemed open to possibilities she had thought were lost forever. 3 days after the video went viral, Blake Mason returned to the Golden Rose. But this time, he came alone. His demeanor was completely different from the arrogant showman who had issued the challenge on Friday night. Emily, he said when she approached his table, I owe you an apology. Emily set down his water glass carefully. That's not necessary, Mr. Mason. Yes, it is, Blake replied firmly. My behavior the other night was inappropriate. I was showing off for my colleagues. I treated you disrespectfully. I'm sorry. Emily appreciated the apology, but she sensed there was more coming. I've been doing some research, Blake continued. I know about Berkeley Conservatory. I know you were 3 months from graduating when you had to leave. Emily felt her professional smile tighten slightly. Mr. Mason, my personal situation isn't really... Please, let me finish, Blake interrupted gently. I want to make this right. I want to pay for you to complete your degree at Berkeley. Full tuition, plus living expenses. You could start next semester. Emily sat down across from him without being invited. The offer was so unexpected that she needed a moment to process it. That's incredibly generous, she said finally, but I can't accept. Blake frowned. Why not? This could change your entire life. Because it would be charity, Emily replied quietly. You're offering this because you feel guilty about how you treated me, not because I've earned it. But you have earned it, Blake protested. Your performance the other night proved that you belong in the music world. Emily shook her head. Mr. Mason, I appreciate what you're trying to do, but accepting your money would mean my music education was paid for by someone who publicly humiliated me first. That's not how I want to remember my return to music. Blake leaned back in his chair. Then how do you want to return to music? On my own terms, Emily said simply. When I'm ready. When I've taken care of my responsibilities here. What responsibilities? Your parents are back on their feet financially. Your father's business is recovering. Emily was surprised that Blake knew so much about her family situation. You've really done your research. I have. And I know you're only staying at this job out of loyalty and stubbornness. You could be performing with orchestras. You could be teaching at conservatories. Could I? Emily asked. Mr. Mason, I've been out of the classical music world for 3 years. That's a lifetime in professional music. The connections I had are gone. The momentum I built is gone. Starting over isn't as simple as paying tuition. Blake was quiet for a moment. What would it take to convince you? Emily considered the question seriously. Prove to me that you value music for its own sake, not as a way to make yourself feel better about treating people badly. How would I do that? There are dozens of talented musicians in this city who are struggling financially. Kids who can't afford instruments or lessons. Community programs that need funding. If you really want to support music, support all of it. Not just the one performer who happened to embarrass you into generosity. Blake nodded slowly. And if I did that, then maybe we could talk about other ways to collaborate, Emily said. But not charity. Partnership. That evening, Emily's mother called with news that both surprised and worried her. Emily, I got a call today from someone at Berkeley Conservatory. They said a donor wants to establish a scholarship in your name. They want you to come in and discuss the details. Emily felt her heart sink. Mom, I think I know who that donor is. They also said there might be opportunities for you to finish your degree while maintaining your current responsibilities. Part-time study, distance learning options. The conversation continued for another 20 minutes. Emily's parents were clearly excited about the possibility of her returning to formal music education, but Emily felt conflicted. She appreciated Blake's effort to make amends. The scholarship program he was proposing would help other students. That was genuinely meaningful, but she still felt uncomfortable about accepting his help directly. The next day, Emily asked for a meeting with the restaurant manager. I need some advice, as she said. I've been offered an opportunity to return to music school, but it would mean leaving the Golden Rose. Emily, that's wonderful news, her manager replied. We'd hate to lose you, but this is clearly what you should be doing. The thing is, I'm not sure I want to leave yet. I like working here. I like the people. I like feeling useful in a practical way. You can be useful in music too. I know, but music has always been about my dreams, my ambitions. Working here has taught me about serving others, about being part of a community. I don't want to lose that. Emily paused, gathering her thoughts. What if there was a way to combine both? To use music as a form of service instead of just personal achievement? Her manager smiled. That sounds like something worth exploring. Emily left the meeting with a new sense of clarity. She didn't want to simply return to her old path. She wanted to create a new one. 2 weeks later, Blake Mason made an announcement that surprised everyone who knew him. He was hosting a charity concert at the city's premier concert hall. The proceeds would benefit music education programs for underprivileged children, and the featured performer would be Emily Harris. Emily learned about this from a phone call that came while she was serving the lunch shift. Ms. Harris, this is Jennifer Walsh from the Metropolitan Concert Hall. We understand you'll be performing at the Mason Foundation charity concert next Friday? Emily nearly dropped the phone. I'm sorry, there must be some mistake. Mr. Mason specifically requested you as the featured performer. He said you'd discuss the details? After ending the confused phone call, Emily immediately sought out Blake's contact information. When she reached him, her tone was controlled but firm. Mr. Mason, I never agreed to perform at any concert. I know, Blake replied calmly, but I hoped you might consider it when you heard the full proposal. I'm listening. The concert will raise money for the Community Music Initiative. It's a new program that provides free instruments and lessons to children who can't afford them. You would be the artistic director of the program, designing curriculum and hiring teachers. Emily felt her anger shifting to curiosity. Go on. The concert isn't about showcasing your talent for wealthy donors. It's about demonstrating what music education can accomplish. You'd be performing not as a former conservatory student, but as someone who understands what music means to people who have to fight for it. Emily was quiet for a long moment. What pieces would I perform? That would be entirely your choice. But I was hoping you might include that original composition you played the other night. The one that made half the restaurant cry. You want me to perform my own music? I want you to show people what authentic musical expression sounds like, not just technical perfection, but real communication. Emily found herself considering the proposal seriously. This wasn't the charity offer she had rejected before. This was an opportunity to use her abilities in service of something larger than herself. If I agreed to this, she said, it would be on specific conditions. Name them. First, I continue working at the Golden Rose until the program is fully established. Second, the Community Music Initiative serves children from all backgrounds, not just the disadvantaged. Music shouldn't be segregated by economic class. Third, I have complete artistic control over the concert program. Agreed to all three, Blake said immediately. The week leading up to the concert was intense. Emily worked her regular shifts at the restaurant, then spent evenings preparing for the performance. She chose a program that told the story of music's power to transform and heal. She would open with Bach's Prelude in C major. Simple, accessible, but profound in its mathematical beauty. Then Chopin's Ballad No. 1, the piece that had first revealed her abilities to the restaurant audience. Finally, her own composition, which she had titled Second Movement, in honor of life's capacity for reinvention. The night of the concert, Emily stood backstage at the Metropolitan Concert Hall, the same venue where she had once dreamed of performing as a conservatory student. But now she was here as something different, something she hadn't known was possible. She wore a simple black dress that her mother had helped her choose. No elaborate gown or flashy jewelry. She wanted the music to speak, not her appearance. Blake Mason introduced her to an audience of 800 people. His words were brief and focused on the mission of the Community Music Initiative, rather than Emily's personal story. Tonight you'll hear from an artist who understands that music is not a luxury for the privileged few, but a necessity for anyone seeking to express their deepest truths. Emily walked onto the stage to polite applause. She sat at the concert grand piano and adjusted the bench height. She looked out at the audience once, then focused entirely on the music. The Bach prelude began simply, each note clear and deliberate. Emily played it with the precision she had learned at Berkeley, but also with the emotional depth she had gained through loss and sacrifice. The familiar piece became something new under her interpretation. As she transitioned to the Chopin Ballade, Emily felt the audience's attention intensify. This was the piece that had changed everything at the Golden Rose, but performing it in this venue for this purpose gave it even greater meaning. The ballade built to its dramatic climax, then settled into the gentle resolution that Chopin had intended as a meditation on beauty emerging from struggle. Emily played the final notes with complete confidence, but it was her original composition that truly moved the audience. Second movement began with fragments of classical themes, then developed into something entirely contemporary. The music spoke of loss and recovery, of dreams deferred but not destroyed, of finding new purposes when old ones became impossible. The piece concluded with a return to the opening theme, but transformed. What had begun as fragments had become a complete, beautiful statement. The metaphor was clear. Life's interruptions could become life's greatest gifts if approached with courage and creativity. When Emily lifted her hands from the keys, the silence stretched for nearly 10 seconds. Then the applause began, building to a standing ovation that lasted several minutes. But Emily barely heard it. She was thinking about the children who would benefit from the program this concert was funding. She was thinking about her students at the Golden Rose who would finally have access to quality music education. She was thinking about the teachers she would hire and the curriculum she would design. Blake Mason joined her on stage for the closing remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, Emily Harris has just demonstrated what the Community Music Initiative is all about. Music that serves others. Music that builds bridges. Music that reminds us of our shared humanity. He turned to Emily. I'm proud to announce that Emily will be serving as the artistic director of our new program, designing music education opportunities for children throughout our community. Emily stepped to the microphone. Music saved my life when I thought my dreams were over. Tonight, we begin ensuring that other young people won't have to choose between their dreams and their responsibilities to family. The applause resumed, but Emily was already thinking about tomorrow, about the children she would teach, about the program she would build, about the second movement her life was about to begin. How do you feel knowing the truth? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And don't forget to subscribe to Hidden Heroine so you never miss incredible stories like this one. 1 year later, the Community Music Initiative occupied a converted warehouse in the Arts District. The space buzzed with the sounds of young voices, piano scales, and violin practice. What had once been industrial storage was now filled with hope and melody. Emily arrived each morning to an office that felt more like a music teacher's dream than a corporate workspace. The walls were covered with photos from student recitals. Thank you letters from parents filled bulletin boards. Charts tracked the progress of over 200 children enrolled in the program. Miss Emily, called 7-year-old Marcus, running up with his small violin case. I learned the whole song you taught me. That's wonderful, Marcus, Emily replied, kneeling to his level. Are you ready to play it for your mom today? Marcus nodded enthusiastically, then ran to join his beginner's orchestra class. The program had grown beyond Emily's wildest expectations. Children from across the city attended classes 6 days a week. Advanced students performed with youth orchestras. Beginners discovered the joy of making their first musical sounds. But perhaps most importantly, the program served families from every economic background. Wealthy parents paid full tuition that subsidized scholarships for low-income students. The diversity created a community where music mattered more than money. Emily still worked one shift per week at the Golden Rose. The restaurant had become a launching pad for musical careers rather than just a dining establishment. Local musicians performed during dinner service. Music students earned money by playing background music for special events. "You know," her former manager had told her recently, "I always knew you were special, but I never imagined you'd turn our little restaurant into a music venue." Emily's parents visited the center regularly, both as volunteers and as proud observers of their daughter's work. Her father now managed the program's finances. Her mother taught music theory to the youngest students. "You found a way to have both," her mother said one afternoon as they watched a children's choir practice. "Your music and your service to others." "I found something better," Emily replied. "I found a way to make them the same thing." Blake Mason had become an unexpected friend and advocate. His foundation provided ongoing funding, but more importantly, he had learned to appreciate music for its intrinsic value rather than its social status. "I used to think music was entertainment for wealthy people," he confessed during one of their monthly planning meetings. "Now I understand it's communication for human beings." The highlight of Emily's year came during the program's first annual showcase. The concert featured performances by students ranging from 5-year-old beginners to teenagers preparing for conservatory auditions. Emily performed last, playing a new original composition she had written specifically for the evening. The piece incorporated melodies that her students had created during their lessons. It was a musical representation of community, collaboration, and shared dreams. As she played, Emily looked out at an audience filled with families who had found their way to music through her program. Children sat beside their grandparents. Parents held siblings who were too young to perform, but old enough to listen. Marcus Chen, the symphony pianist whose video had started everything, attended as a guest artist. He performed a duet with one of Emily's advanced students, demonstrating that professional musicians and emerging artists could learn from each other. "Emily," he said after the concert, "you've created something remarkable here. This isn't just music education. This is community building." Emily smiled, watching her students pack up their instruments while chattering excitedly about their performances. "Music was always meant to bring people together," she replied. "I just learned that lesson in a restaurant instead of a conservatory." As the evening ended and families headed home, Emily sat at the center's piano for a few quiet minutes. She played softly, letting her fingers find melodies that expressed gratitude, hope, and joy. The old upright piano from her childhood had taught her that music could be a private refuge. The grand piano at the Golden Rose had shown her that music could be a public gift. The instruments at the Community Music Initiative proved that music could be a shared language for building the kind of world she wanted to live in. A sincere melody can touch hearts and open up an entire future. Outside, the city hummed with its usual energy. But inside the center, surrounded by instruments and photographs, and the lingering echoes of young voices learning to sing, Emily knew she had found her place in the world's great symphony. If you believe that talent and kindness always create miracles, please subscribe to Hidden Heroine. Let's spread these heartwarming stories together.